All right, so we're gonna break down this Nia Long and Jeezy situation. So a lot of you guys sent me this video. I ain't gonna lie, I did not want to do it. Why? Because it's an hour long. And I'm a therapist in real life, y'all. Y'all think I'm not a therapist in real life. I'm a licensed therapist in 2 states, California and Texas. I really do this. You feel me? So to take an hour to break down a video, I love y'all so much that I'm gonna do it. I love y'all so much that I'm gonna do it. So let's get into it. I've seen a lot of clips about it on social media. I've seen a lot of people talking about it. So I just want to most definitely see what people's been talking about. So let's get into it. We're gonna rock this hour long video. Let's get into it.
My therapist always says, take care of little Nia.
Mhm.
So when you see this photo of yourself, what feelings do you have?
Good. Mm, okay, it's kind of interesting.
My grandmother was very religious. She made me go to church and Sunday school and Easter speeches and all that. I didn't realize
Mm,
it then. I just went because I was supposed to be going,
Yeah.
right? But it came to some points in my life where things just happened that was so real that there was nowhere else to go but with God.
What was the
mm.
activation moment of trauma for you?
I think there was several things. I think that the first was being left with a babysitter.
Let me. Oh, he was about to say something. I probably paused too early, but I'm pretty sure he's gonna get into it. So, she was talking about what's the activation of trauma, and sometimes the activation of trauma, when folks say that, they really what they really mean is, what started it all. Like, what was the traumatic event? Usually, your first experience with the traumatic event.
There was a woman that was older than me. I mean, that
Mm,
was older, and her, you know, touching and doing things to me that don't normally happen to kids,
Like
right?
molesting.
Right, basically.
Yeah.
So
So I want to point this out real quick. I've had videos I talked about this in the past. Um, And I feel as if this is something that needs to be an ongoing conversation. When men have been sexually assaulted or done sexual acts against their will, especially as a child, it's still rape, it's still child molestation. It's no difference from when a woman experiences. And I feel like Jeezy, in this part, he was literally like, I guess that's what you can call her, kind of alluding to like, I guess so, that child molestation. It is child molestation. It is child molestation. So I feel like as men, we need to do a better job in actually naming things for what they are, even if we feel as if it's not that. But again, that's a whole nother level. So I'm glad Nia pointed out like, nah, that's child molestation, bro. That's child molestation. So let's keep it rocking.
I was introduced to sex at a very young
Really
age.
young.
Yeah.
Mm,
Second thing was that I had this lady that lived next door to us in an apartment. She was married to this guy. They had 2 kids, and it
Yeah.
was around my age, and I used to hang out with them. And I was there one day, and I remember like it was yesterday. They got into an argument,
Yeah.
and me and the little boys was playing in the room, and I heard them, and I heard that saying before. Yeah, you wait till I get back. I'll be right back. And I kind of looked at the boys. I'm like, yo, and sure enough, he came running upstairs, and he went in the closet, right? And when he was going in the closet, he was thumbing through the closet, and I saw when he pulled it out, it was like a big, like had to be like a silver 357.
woo. That's a big old gun. That's a big gun.
Oh
And I
my
looked
God.
at them, and I immediately was like, yo, we gotta hide.
Yeah.
And
But why did you know to hide?
because I had been around that before growing up. So I went and climbed under the sink
Mm,
in the bathroom and hid.
Mm.
And I heard some yelling, and all I heard was,
He
mm.
killed the wife?
he didn't kill her. He shot her like 4 times,
Oh my God.
right?
Wow.
And he ran, left us there. My mom and dad came looking for me.
Imagine being a kid hearing that. Some of you guys may not even have to imagine because you guys heard it before. But imagine if you didn't, what that was like. And plus, those of you guys who have experienced that, man, trigger warning, trigger warning, literally a
Um,
trigger warning.
Eventually, they found me under the sink when the police and everything was there. But I just, they just stuck with me, right?
Right.
And before I was
Mm.
8,
Mm-hmm.
I had already accepted this is the norm.
Before being 8 years old, accepting that this is normal behavior. Let me back up again. Before he was 8 years old, he has accepted that this is normal behavior. Let's keep it rocking.
Right? I was already desensitized, and
At
I was
8 years old?
yeah, I was already thinking like, okay, this is what life is, and it gave me this thing to like always like protect myself, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Because
and
nothing
think,
felt safe.
right?
Do you have
So protective factors. A lot of times when you go through a traumatic experience, what you do automatically, sometimes consciously or subconsciously, you put yourself in a position of never having to experience that position or situation ever again. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, right? So this is where we talk about defense mechanisms. Like it sounded like Jeezy was having some forms of defense mechanisms as he was going through this traumatic event, and it created a lot of defense mechanisms for him.
siblings at this
My
point?
brother died when we was younger.
What did it do to
Relationship.
your mother?
I mean, my mother had a like very toxic relationship.
You and your mom?
Yes, my sister's my little sister,
Yeah.
right? But I call her my little big sister because she's probably the only person that can talk sense into me.
My relationship with my father was probably very toxic.
Also,
Well, because he wasn't there.
okay,
I didn't have the example of what a family was supposed to look like.
right.
The first thing before you marry someone, it's like, well, what is his relationship like with his mother?
Yo, that's real. That's real deal. I didn't know Nia was about to be opening up a little bit. Yeah, I didn't know she was about to be opening up a little bit. But shout out to Nia. Shout out to Nia Long. Many a times when we grow up in situations and circumstances, especially when it comes to dating relationships, I know I have to deal with things myself in my own therapy and figuring out like, seeing my parents go through what they went through, especially being divorced by after being married for so many years. It's kind of like, okay, is marriage actually a thing or does it exist? Is healthy relationships and sustainable relationships actually exist? You know what I mean? So shout out to her for mentioning that, highlighting that. That's what's up.
I feel like my mother, it came from her not being raised right. Very violent, very verbal, very cold. I just remember that I was kind of on the outside because I looked so much like my father. They divorced, and all I know is my father just told me straight up, he'll never trust another woman again, which made me go, shit.
Well, what was that about?
Because whatever happened between them hurt him.
So one was not feeling safe and protected when you were molested.
Right.
Two was a void of love and compassion and acceptance from your mom.
Yeah.
And then the third one was, okay, now I'm going to completely disconnect from myself here because there is no love here. And I'm going to go to the streets and I'm going to hustle and I'm going to make money and I'm going to prove that I'm
gonna
worthy
be
of this
somebody.
love and I'm going to be somebody.
When I left my mother's house, I had
Let me pause real quick. It sounds like Nia Long. Mm, and this is kind of where let me know what y'all think. It sounds like she's kind of playing the role of a therapist. It sounds more of like a therapy session, quote unquote, more than like an interview. So I wonder if she's gonna start like giving feedback again. This is my first time seeing it. I wonder if she's gonna start giving feedback and things of that nature. But Jeezy did hit on one point. A lot of folks, especially single moms, I've heard a lot. I'm pretty sure it happens with single fathers as well too. But single moms are a little bit more frequent in our day and age. A lot of times when the child looks like a father, the mother can resent the child a lot, especially if that relationship was an unhealthy relationship. And especially if, you know, maybe that person caused trauma to their mother or the parents had traumatic events together, domestic violence, or whatever it is. But the fact that he said, I looked like a lot like my father and I was kind of casted out or he kind of separated himself, that was kind of interesting. I don't know if you guys picked up on that, but that was kind of an interesting thing that he said there.
to be around 13, 14,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
And the reason why I left because she pulled a gun on me, right?
Okay.
And basically told me like, you're gonna either do what I say, or I'm gonna take you out of this world type thing. I was just like, yo, I'm
Why
just
was
gonna-
she so hard?
I don't really know her father like that. And
Yeah.
as I get older, I start to realize that you just never know what somebody went through. One thing I love about my mother, she was spicy.
Uh-huh.
Like she got a tongue that can cut half the world down.
I love
with.
it. So I'm raising boys.
Right.
It's very interesting when you are trying to get that young boy to be a man and to go out into the world. And I would say that I do a good job of being present with them.
Right.
But then there's that part of me where I'm like, I don't want to raise mama's boys.
I got
I'm not sure if you guys experience this, or I'm not sure if this is always a thing for debate. Can a woman raise a man? Can a woman raise a man? I know. I want to hear what you guys think about that. I think in this day and age, a lot of women have raised men. There's always that thing where it's like, okay, there's some things I can't teach you, and sometimes that's where us as men we miss things sometimes growing up. But it sounds like she wasn't trying to coddle them to be mama's boys, but I think that's interesting for her to mention that, and it's just in this conversation.
an option to go to this boot camp. And in that camp, I was able to get my GED, learn life skills, and a bunch of different things. It was my first time being pulled away from my environment, right? So it definitely gave me time to think about, what I wanted to do with my life, where I wanted to go, and it was a different type of experience because it was like a lot of structure, something that I wasn't used to. And it's crazy because I'll never forget. It was one of the times that I was there and I was getting ready to get out. But I remember we went on a field trip because it was near water, and I remember just being on a military ship, like because the waves are crashing against it. I was just like, I don't want to go back home. I might just should jump. Or,
Mm.
Really?
yeah. And I
That is what do we call that? Suicide ideation. That is a suicide ideation. To have a thought of wanting to kill yourself and actually having a plan, that's a little bit beyond the suicide ideation. That's like, when you have intent, that's a whole different thing. It's one thing to have ideation, you're thinking about it, but it's another thing to actually have a plan. For him to have a plan, and the fact that he wanted to do that before going home, because it sounds as if, and he probably, again, I pause it, but you maybe get into it. It sounds as if him going back home was actually, again, this is what he felt. Him going back home was actually worse than living. That's what it sounded like.
I thought about it a few times. It was surreal. That's probably the only time in my life where I ever felt that low, that I
Yeah.
felt like this could be the end for me.
Yeah.
And I buckled back down. I came home, and I definitely turned my hustle up. Like I just went about it as a business. And this is around the time that I had my son,
Mm.
and he made me focus on becoming a man.
We are born as beings meant to be here to love.
Right. That's the crazy thing though, because as I sit here at 46, I can tell you that,
Yeah.
but I can't honestly tell you that I've experienced love.
Ooh, 46 years old and saying that he's never experienced love. And I know he's recently gone through a divorce, going through a divorce. So maybe you could talk about it then. Again, it's a lot of video left. So most definitely hoping that he can get into that.
Like,
Right.
especially non-conditional. Like I couldn't tell you that. It was always something to it.
Well, maybe you had to
Mm.
get open to it first to heal it, to attract it.
Well, I mean, when you're coming up in a family, right?
Yeah.
There should be at least a baseline of health. Right?
Yes.
And just
That's true. Most definitely, if you are in a family setting, that's where you learn love. That's where you learn affection. That's where you learn pretty much the fundamentals of like love. You know, if you don't get in the household, you will struggle moving forward in accepting and also giving love as well too.
healthy,
Yes.
just
Yes.
conversation, right? I can say that I probably got more love in the streets than I did when
Wow.
I was. And that's one of the reasons why I love my grandmother so much, because she was the only person that I can recall. My dad's folks was a little more calmer.
Yeah.
My mom's folks, they weren't playing the radio.
Is your mom still alive?
No, my mom passed. My mom
Did you get
passed
to-
during COVID. She had dementia.
So my
and
dad, same. My
Yeah.
dad passed away the day after Kobe Bryant.
Crazy thing is when she was there and I was going to visit her, and when she had dementia, it was a little crazy because I couldn't really, because I was trying to get to a space where I can forgive her. I used to try to talk to her. And then, my mom's smart, even if she had dementia. It's like when I started talking about the hard stuff, she started like acting like she don't really understand what I'm
She
saying.
didn't want to talk
She
about
didn't
it.
want to talk.
It was too painful for her.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I love my.
So it sounded like at that point he was trying to talk to his mom, open up, have some type of interaction, maybe trying to get some closure on a lot of things. You know what I mean? Like I've had moments too where I saw some, my mom was just about certain things, like growing up, and this is like in my 30s, and I'm like sitting there like, what was going on at that time because I barely remember, and sometimes she could recall things, and shout out to my moms to be able to recall things and like put things into context, not only based on what I saw, but what she also experienced as well too.
Mother. You know what I'm
Of
saying?
course you do.
And I think I spent most of my life, which is probably one of the reasons why I'm successful.
Yeah.
It was trying to prove that I'm enough. And every time I got to a milestone, there was no fulfillment there, right?
Because
Because
she didn't acknowledge.
she didn't acknowledge it.
Mm. This says forgive. Forgive. Stop feeling angry or resentful towards someone for an offense, flaw, or mistake. Mm.
I can't say this. Lately I've definitely been on my journey, so I've done a lot of work. One of my uncles just passed, and he's one of my favorite uncles. Everybody who knows my music know I talk about him. He's my first uncle that gave me $20, and I flipped it a zillion times, and that's how I'm here.
Yeah.
And his name was Bo Slick, and he gave me his disability check. Well, he passed last month,
Ugh, that
and
must have been tough.
it's crazy because I went to the funeral home in our hometown, and I went and saw him, right? And I hadn't seen him in a while. And I said, he had a smirk on his face, and I was like, "Live it Slick. He's still giving him hell, boy. He think it's funny."
Yeah.
He gone, but it's crazy because he was laying in the exact same place, the last place I saw my mom. And so on the way back, I tell my driver, I give him an address, and I say, "Yo, take me to this address." And we pull up. It's like an old church. And my sister has it set up nice out there. When we set it up nice, where my mom's buried, we got like a bench and all these things. She has a crown on her
Oh,
stuff, so it's really beautiful,
yeah.
right? And it's peaceful. And I went out there because I had some life changes that was going on, and I wrote her a letter on the way there, and I sat down and I read the letter to her. I told her about her new granddaughter,
Yeah.
how amazing, beautiful she was. I told her that I'm working on my relationship with my son, and we're in a kind of cool place. I told her about my middle daughter and how beautiful she's turning now. I told her about my life changes and the things that that I'm concerned about, some of my fears. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And and I basically forgave her.
Ooh, that's good.
And my basis of the letter was to tell her everything that was going on in my life, and even if she's not proud, I understand.
What did you say in the moment of forgiveness?
I understand what it's like to raise a rebellious kid. I understand what it's like to have your own wounds, that your work that she need to do, right? And she didn't get a chance to do that. And I understand that maybe she had a different way of loving me that I didn't understand, right? And because my mom the type of if I go to the basketball court and get jumped, she gonna take me around there to fight everybody one-on-one.
Me too.
Right.
I'm
You know
taking
what
my
I'm saying?
kids too.
She's like, "Come on, him first."
She said she's taking her kids too. That's crazy. I didn't know people still doing that in 2020, but or 2023 or the 2020s or 2000, I should say. So I think what's interesting with this is like he's actually taking the time to like heal. He's actually taking the time to forgive, and he's actually giving some context to him actually forgiving others.
The second,
And
him
I got
third.
your back,
Right,
and the
right.
Vaseline's in the car,
And
and
that's
I'm gonna
it.
take my earrings off,
There you
and
go.
let's go.
Yeah, that's her.
But do you understand that that was her way of loving you?
Well, this
Mm,
is what happened. And this was, I'm gonna keep it a buck. This was like, I was in LA, so this was like maybe 2 nights ago. On early morning meditation. I meditate in the morning. And I was meditating, and I had a vision that I saw my mom, and I was talking to her. We was just talking, and I just asked her, I said, I forgive you, but can you forgive me?
For
Not
mm. I'm giving forgiveness, but I also want to give it.
for taking what she gave me and embodying that, right? And having that same type of energy. Because when my mother died, I didn't grieve, right? I
You didn't
didn't I
grieve at
didn't
all.
cry. I didn't
Not at all.
nothing. And I asked her to forgive me for not sending her off right.
So it sounded like Jeezy had a lot of resentment towards his mom. That's what it sounds like. He had a lot of resentment towards his mom, and I know he's had shared in the past, not in this depth, obviously, in his lyrics, his relationship with his mom, but as far as his grieving process with his mom, that tells a lot. That tells a lot.
One thing I learned about life now is that I even if somebody treats you wrong, right? It's how you react or respond,
Absolutely.
right?
Mm.
That's
So
been
I
the
can't,
biggest lesson for
right?
me.
And
So it's not always, I like how he said that. It's not always about how people treat you. It's about how you respond to it. I always say in my practice and like when I'm working with folks, you really can't control what people do or how people treat you, but you always control how you react. Sometimes you may feel as if you don't know how to control or how to react, but it's really because you don't know where that's actually coming from. And what I mean by that is you don't know how to properly react because one, you probably have never explored that for yourself, and two, it was never taught to you to respond otherwise. Anger for men is always a safe go-to. It's always a safe go-to for men is for us to be angry.
I can't look at what she did to me and then react, right? My response is what we had, and I promise you, like I sat there and I explained to her, the things that affected me and why I couldn't connect at that moment, and that, and she asked me for forgiveness, but I wanted her to forgive me. It's like we left in a gray space, right? She doesn't know how I feel. I don't know how she feels. I promise you, it was like this pain, like it was like somebody like stabbing you in the chest with a pitchfork or something, and it was just like hurt so bad. And when she told me that she understood, I started to feel it dissolve.
When you get to a
Mm.
place where you can forgive,
Right,
even when there's pain involved,
right.
that's freedom.
It's so tricky because I
I'm hearing Nia Long, and again, I don't know. I'm hearing her playing therapist right now more than the interviewer. I could be wrong because she's doing a lot of exploring with his emotions, and you know, again, I'm not sure if Nia Long has the capacity to. When I say capacity, it's like the insight and knowing, like when as she's asking these questions, she's digging and digging and digging and digging. If she's, actually qualified or trained to actually take on some of these responses. Now, I don't anticipate it going wrong in this interview, but the way she's questioning, she's using a lot of Socratic questioning, which is like a lot of digging type of questionings to pull answers out of Jeezy. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I just kind of wanted to make that statement real quick because I noticed that. I noticed that in her style of interviewing right now.
Look, I think it's really important for Black men and Black women to have these conversations. I
I
don't
agree.
think we have these conversations
I
enough.
agree.
And I think it's a really tragic place when there's a person who's afraid of intimacy, right? Because intimacy is the trigger in which we can actually start to unpack ourselves.
All right, so I was now talking about Nia Long and like her coming from this therapeutic approach or therapy approach, and but it sounds as if like I'm agreeing with what she's saying for sure. Like I'm agreeing with what she's saying, but it sounds as if she's done a lot of work herself, and she's able to maybe have the capacity to not maybe the training or certifications or degrees or whatever, but have the capacity to hold these emotions that she's bringing up as she's asking these questions.
Are you guarded? Because you seem guarded.
Yeah,
Ooh, guarded. All right, so I want to hear that.
very. One thing is my relationships have been very much on the surface when I started losing a lot of people, right? Because you don't
Are
want
you
to
talking
get to
about love relationships or
homies, like people?
Homies, and then even love relationships.
So a lot of times when we talk about being guarded and opening up, and she's talking about intimacy, especially with black men, if we have so much loss and we had so many things that we dealt with in the past, it's very hard to like build a connection. It's kind of like, you've been told one story, but you're seeing another, or you've been having one experience, but this other experience keeps reliving itself. Like, maybe some of these things are wrong, but to open up and actually talk about it may seem like a more of a curse than a gift or an advantage, I should say.
I've been in where, people just ain't right.
You do realize, and I've had to learn this too, because I can be guarded as well,
Right.
right? Is if you are carrying that,
Right.
you attract that.
This is
So
what I
if
heard.
someone else is guarded or someone else is not being their full authentic self, it's because in some sort of way we haven't settled in.
You get what you receive. You know what I mean? What are emotions? What are our emotions? Emotions is energy and motion. You get what you receive. Sometimes our emotions are within ourselves, and then if we're talking about transfer emotions, like giving other people energy, emotion. You get what you receive. You get what you put out. I'm a firm believer in that.
And I think it's really hard to do when you're in the industry that we're in, because
Right.
everything about this industry tells you you have to be a certain version of yourself that people expect you to be.
But see, that's the thing. See, I go even farther back
Yeah.
because my situations are dire, right? Because if you're not guarded,
Then you're dead.
there you
Mm. Defense mechanism, survival technique. Jeezy has identified his survival technique and his defense mechanism. All these having to do with coping, especially when we talk about you know um, the lifestyle that he lived, the lifestyle he grew up in. You know, dealing with gang violence. I know he was affiliated at one point in time. I'm not sure where he's at with that right now. I know he hasn't spoke about it, but like that street life is real. When when you put yourself out there, it's seen as a weakness. If you're in the jungle, the most vulnerable die first. Sometimes the streets is a lot like a jungle.
go. And if you're not guarded and you're not smart, then you end up in prison. If you're not guarded, you're not smart, then you're up in these situations where, you're on the losing end. Then going into music, it didn't make it any better because now this same type of energy
Now you're
follows
an
you.
ass.
But see, that's the thing. That's where the imposter syndrome get reversed
Yeah.
because it's not me wanting to be like them. It's them wanting to be like me.
Right.
Ooh, imposter syndrome reverse. I think that's a good way to put it. Most definitely a good way to put it. It's not you want to be them, but then want to be me. I'm not sure if you guys ever know like the story behind Jeezy, especially like working with like BMF and Big Meech and all that stuff. Like he really lived that life, like for real, for real. Like he really was he really was in the streets. He really was doing all these things that he says he did. I remember there was a story that he told about like, one of his first albums and like they had like fake money that they wanted to put in him. I think it was Thug Motivation, the first one, if I'm not mistaken. Let me know in the comments if I'm mistaken that one. But instead of like having the money actually, you know, be fake in the background, like he's like, nah, he made a phone call. Long story short, he made a phone call. He's like, hey, I need $1 million in cash, blah, 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 blah. Bam. And it was became part of his cover. It wasn't no fake money in his album or his album cover, album work, videos or anything like that. That he always used real money. You know what I mean? So yeah, he was really about that life for sure.
I'm the truth. I ain't his daddy, his cousin, his uncle, his brother. I'm him. Like there's nobody that I know that's walked this path of life that I walk that can stand while I stand and say I did the things that I did. Anybody who really has common sense knows that, right? But I want to ask you, how do you know that I'm guarded just by having this conversation?
Because I'm from where you from, and I see it.
Oh,
Game
talk that
recognized
talk.
game.
Talk that talk.
Game recognized game.
I see you guarded too, though, a little bit. Just a
Well,
little bit.
yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I'm
What would
guarded.
make you guarded?
Don't fuck with my kids.
Mhm.
That's like off limits.
Right.
Not even a little bit. And if you do,
Mhm.
you will hear from me.
That comes from me not always feeling safe as little Nia
Right.
and me not wanting my children to ever not feel like
They
Yeah,
don't have me active in their lives as their safety.
I love my son. I think he's an amazing guy. I think he's very charismatic. I think he got all the things, but I think that the way I've tried to love him over the years was totally wrong, not his love language for one. And I think the things that I instilled in him as a youngster, that doesn't serve him now.
You know, I had a really public breakup recently. It was a wake up call for me in the sense of like, okay, you're going to do this on your own and you're going to be fine.
Right.
And you're not going to worry about what anyone thinks and has to say. Because the relationship was rocky for a very long time. So, because I don't believe another person can break anyone up.
Right.
Like, I don't buy that. Right. To your point with your son, I think my older son saw me trying to keep the family together, but I had to come to a place where loving myself was bigger and more important than saving anybody.
Prioritizing your self-care is key. Sometimes, especially when we talk about like being parents and, folks who have to take care of other people and have a lot of people depending on them, you know, you can't take care of anybody else if you're burnt out. That's just a fact. You can probably do things and physically walk somewhere and act and like be very robotic, but it's not sustainable. Burnout is not sustainable. I'm glad Nia Long brought that up because like your self-care and your mental health is key. Like you can't sit here and walk around and be like, I'm I'm good. Like it's not gonna happen. It don't happen like that. It does not happen like that at all.
Well, if you got to save your star player, if your star player is not doing good, the team
Can we
is.
not talk players? Can we use a different? Can we say
there.
like
Stay
the best horse in the race?
Right. Oh my God.
But the reason I know that you're guarded is because when I was in high school, I only dated drug dealers.
Oh, really?
Oh my God, that's where I was. I lived in South Central LA. That's what it was.
Wow. I would have never thought that.
Really?
Nah. But going through your trials and tribulations, like
Yeah.
I know you're working on yourself, like we all
Yeah.
are. Do you feel that you're okay? Like not what people are supposed to see and supposed to think. You.
I think I'm exactly where I need to be, which is some days I'm like totally good. And then other days
that.
I'm like, oh God, this feels like so much work.
I feel that.
I think that was a guarded response, but she did already mention she was guarded. I just think that maybe it was a guarded response. It's like one of those things where, it's like, okay, are you good or you not good? Well, it is what it is. It's kind of like saying it is what it is. That I feel like that was a very passive response, but she already gave a disclaimer that, she is guarded. So
And then other days it feels like women shouldn't have to be this strong.
Right.
I don't want to be this strong sometimes.
Right.
Kate, you made me cry.
Yeah, I got you first. But you're good though.
So maybe it was a little bit more, again, down there, again, guarded responses, it's like those emotions were coming up for her. So I still feel like even though she had an emotional response, I feel like it was still guarded because maybe some things she's probably still exploring with herself. So, but shout out to Nia Long for being vulnerable and actually, answering that question for sure.
No, I'm good. I mean, listen, it is what it is.
I mean, it's life. It's a funny thing.
I don't mean to laugh, but what did I just say? What did I just say? Like, it is what it is, right? That's kind of a passive response. I mean, I use it sometimes myself, when I don't really want to, really dig into certain things. But that's sometimes can be seen as a defense mechanism, can sometimes be seen as like, okay, I'm saying this in the fashion of, just kind of trying to maintain. It is what it is. It is not what it's not.
Because like I always saw myself, my vision of myself was, well manicured man, good skin, wedding band, Plain Jane watch, even though I'm wearing this right now.
That's not plain
And
Jane,
yeah, I
by the
know,
way.
but it's,
That's
I
very
wore the wrong one,
reminiscent
right?
of Hustler days.
I feel,
That's a
feel a
little
little something.
hustlery.
Well, it's supposed to be Plain Jane, but I felt a little spicy
Nah,
today.
nigga, that ain't plain Jane.
And I don't think anybody should have to be that strong.
Black people have survived insurmountable obstacles. The journey of being Black in America is not easy. And I'm not a victim to any of it.
Right.
But I'm realistic to the journey.
Right.
I know how I am treated differently in certain situations. I understand that I have to raise my boys to be men.
Right.
I understand that I have to figure out the balance between being soft and vulnerable and open.
Is that hard? Like being
No,
soft
because
and-
that's who I want to be. That's who I really am.
But I would say personally, like I would appreciate that because it's hard, because women have it their own thing they go through, and then when you deal with men and you have that hard exterior, it's hard. You right?
And I want to pause real quick here because I feel like it's worth mentioning. Sometimes there's even like single mothers, and I always feel for single mothers, and what they experience. But even like the roles can be very hard. Like I think Jesus did a good job of saying like it's hard. It is, you have to take on a masculine and a feminine role, so to speak. Figuratively, like a masculine energy, you have to get feminine energy, and sometimes, like I don't think anybody can really play both like that. You know what I mean? Especially when it comes to raising kids in the household. Like you're playing both mom and dad, and you're raising boys, and you're a woman. Like that's hard in itself. That's very hard in itself. And this is where I've had conversations in the past about how even the Black community, one of our biggest downfalls is our family. That's next to economics. And having resources. It's like, the dismantling of the Black family is one of the bigger detriments to our society now. So I'm glad she spoke on that. That didn't sound like a guarded response, and it sounded like she's opening up a little bit more because before it sounded like she was. I'm not sure if you guys picked up on this, but she was kind of like jabbing at Jeezy a bit, like, "Okay, what's going on with you? How are you feeling about this? Like, what about your mom? Blah blah blah." And then it sounds more so like now Jeezy's kind of. I don't think it's intentional that he's reversing the role, but he's asking her the questions now, and now she's kind of let up on like her like going and asking all these questions right off the bat. Now she's kind of feeling maybe a little bit more, probably a little bit more comfortable now that she's kind of shed a few tears and like opening it up a bit. But I've noticed, the energy kind of shifted, which is a good thing because again, I thought this was gonna be more like an interview, and then when I saw it, looked like Nia Long was gonna be playing this therapist role, whatever. But Jeezy also has some good follow up, so it looks more like a healthier conversation, which is always good in my opinion.
Because we already fighting the world. You know what I'm saying?
But so are we.
But that's what we got to find to happen media.
I didn't have enough examples in my own life to like understand what it really meant or what it really means to see a relationship between a man and a woman
Wow.
that is healthy
Wow.
and balanced.
Wow.
And you work through things instead of like every conversation is not an argument.
Right.
And I don't think Black men and Black women have those conversations enough.
Even now we're doing the work.
Big fact. Shout out to Nia Long for saying that. It's hard to, it's hard to catch what you don't see, right? Like so to speak. It's hard to like, catch what you don't see. And I think that's one thing like I was trying to learn just in my own stuff is like trying to figure out like what a healthy relationships actually look like, you know. And again, just because somebody's married doesn't mean they had a healthy relationship. Right? Like you could be married for years and decades and like it not be a healthy relationship. And you think that's what marriage is or a healthy relationship actually is, but it's actually not. So shout out to Neil Long for sure. I most definitely appreciate that response.
Even now we're doing the work. That don't mean everybody else is on board. And that's the crazy part.
But that's the thing. You got to let them go. You got to let them go and you got to let them be on their own journey and you can't fight for it anymore. And you got to love them exactly where they are. And you got to say, baby, you know what? The hardest thing to do is to walk away from someone that you still love.
Boundaries. That's pretty much what we're talking about. Boundaries. Shout out Neil Long. Neil Long, now I don't know. I'm listening to it more now. I'm having a little bit more I guess I'm riding with you on this one for sure. Prior to what I said earlier, like I feel as if maybe you again you've been doing the work, or maybe I'm again I gotta check your credentials, but it sounds as if like you know a lot more than many folks that are celebrities that hop on platforms and say X, Y, and Z about or interview therapy, excuse me, interview folks from a mental health standpoint. So that's what's up. There's boundaries, most definitely. You gotta set boundaries. Sometimes the boundaries isn't just a line, but sometimes it's scissors. Cutting people off. It's not just drawing a line with a pencil. Sometimes you need some scissors.
They tell me he
And
was a
it's
pastor too.
okay.
And
No, I'm just speaking from my I'm speaking from like,
I 1000% agree because
experience.
the hardest thing I had to do in life was walking away from everything that I knew that could support me, right?
That's right. But what was the moment that you knew you had to walk away?
Something happened in the Bay. Somebody got killed, and they tried to put it on us while I was on tour with Wiz Khalifa. They came and locked me up right here in LA. I just remember being in jail, and I took care of everybody. $1 million bail for everybody. $10 million.
Oh my God.
I'm sitting in the county jail, and as soon as I get in there,
If he said he was in LA, he was at probably at Twin Towers. The Twin Towers ain't no joke. I've worked in Twin Towers. I've visited people in Twin Towers. The only thing I haven't done in Twin Towers is be an officer, guard, or an inmate. But Twin Towers is rough.
somebody comes to get me out, and they're like, "We got to get you out of here." And I'm like, "No, I can't leave these people in the county jail. I got to
Yeah.
stay here until I can get everybody out the same way we came in."
Yeah.
And of course, I didn't want to tell nobody how to touch my finances.
Yeah.
So I had to figure that part out. I ended up
Yeah.
getting everybody out. But my point is, I sat in there for 2 weeks until I can get everybody out.
Right.
The people that I had that was supposed to be in my corner, ain't nobody check on my son, my daughter, my household.
Nothing.
And when I got out of jail, I was at the lowest point of my life. I did everything right on this tour. I didn't take any gang members or nothing crazy. I took the people that was working. I stayed on my bus the whole time. I did everything right, and I got caught up. I had Minister Farrakhan calling me every other day, like, "Jeezy, brother, the enemy's coming." I'm just like, what the hell is going on?
Wow. People that you thought was in your corner and that are not, that's the worst. That got to be the worst. Well, they've got to be the worst, man. So shout out Jeezy for being able to actually talk about that because yeah, you would think folks would, and I hear this a lot, especially when I'm working with folks, especially when I have friends and family members that are incarcerated. You would think that people have your back while you're incarcerated. Especially as men, like we bond over different things. Like sometimes we may not have that emotional intelligence all the time in our bonding, but we have the certain sayings like bros over hoes, bro code and all this other stuff. But sometimes when we get down to the nitty gritty, we don't know how to look out for each other. And it sounds like that's what Jesus experiences now is really that. Was that what you experienced in unconditional love? You feel me? Like because unconditional is what no matter what conditions, there's still gonna be love being shown. But under the circumstances, it didn't sound as if he had that type of support system with him or around him at the time.
So
Why was he calling you?
he called me and said, "Brother Jeezy, your message is changing. The enemy is coming to get you." I said, "With all due respect, Mr. Farrakhan, all my enemies in my neighborhood. I'm not going back there no time soon." He said,
Yeah.
"No, the enemy." But he was saying was that my message was changing and I was starting to educate my people,
Oh
right?
wow.
And now here comes the enemy. And he wasn't lying. It was when I got to that arena to do my show in front of 30,000 people, it was my turn to go on stage. It was maybe 70 police back there waiting to take me to jail.
70?
It was a span of my life, maybe like 3 years, probably shortly after my first album. Like it was shootout to shootout. Like I've been in shootouts with my dad being right there, and it's like a combo of everything. So it's a combo of the street shit I had going on before that.
Yeah.
There's a combo of the get money life with these guys, and then there's a combo of just people that I just never had a liking for. That they have a liking for me. That we just was in the same city trying to coexist. I used to get up and pick my outfit based on what I was. If it happened tonight, how I was gonna look. Right.
You were like, if I
Wow. So he was preparing to die. It sounds as if, and I'm going to keep it rocking, but it sounded like he was preparing himself to die. You know, talking about, okay, if I get caught dead or if somebody kills me, this is what I want to wear. Imagine that, right? Imagine that. Like how much trauma has to be done to someone. Specific, I know Jeezy talked about like him having a lot of traumatic experiences, but you're like kind of dressing yourself up for your death and not dressing up yourself for the day. That's deep. That's deep for sure.
I die tonight, my
I
shit's
gotta
gonna be
be
fly.
fly.
Do you realize what that does to your psyche just leaving the house thinking like I gotta make sure my shit is fly if I get
Right.
killed?
Boxers, everything. I want to wear the best boxers,
You're like,
brand
I
new
will
socks.
not have
Right.
any holes in my
No dirty
underwear.
draws. That
I
is
promise you, that was my life. I didn't understand how I was gonna even make it out, right? And that's where all the drinking came in because now I'm trying to self-soothe. I'm trying
Were
to
you an
numb.
alcoholic? You think?
1000%.
Did you?
I appreciate him acknowledging that because sometimes when we talk about, drinking, drinking is legal by age, and you can go to the liquor store and get um, alcohol, things of that nature. But we talk about drugs, that's kind of like, oh, well, you're using drugs or substances or pills or whatever it is. But alcohol is a drug too. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, we have these slogans like drink responsibly, things of that nature. But Jeezy right now is like really, really opening up and telling you about his alcoholism. Like, let's call it like it is. Like, many folks will be in denial about their alcohol use. Like, this is alcoholism. You know what I mean? This is alcoholism when you having excessive amounts of drinking. Sometimes we may see it as like, okay, I'm just relaxing, I'm going through a phase, but you don't want that title of being an alcoholic, but let's take that title away and call it for what it is. It's alcoholism. Because alcoholic does have to do with your identity, and most folks don't want to identify with that. But you do have to call it for what it is, and it is alcoholism.
Did you go to like AA or did you just
Nah, I just stopped
you stopped?
because my mom and my dad, they was, my mom's side of the family, they drank a lot. And when I was leaning in on my vices, I started to notice that there was a couple of things that happened a few times where I wasn't sharp. And I was just like, okay, if I don't stop this,
Interesting.
I'm gonna get got. And then I would just like back away from the alcohol. And what I would do is, well, two things. The first thing is I wanted to get healthy. So I got down, I dropped 60 pounds, got myself together. This was right before the recession because any time of my career before, from Streets is Watching to the recession, which was about 6 years,
Yeah.
I was out of it. Like I was leading men, right? I went everywhere with 150, 200 people.
Mm.
In every city I went to, it was another 300 waiting on us. It was like a real thing. And I was leading everybody off the end of a cliff.
So this is actually getting really, really good. I think I'm gonna do a part two for this. Honestly, I feel like I'm gonna do a part two because there's a lot of context in here, and even though this video is running up about an hour or so, I didn't know it was gonna be so many layers. I thought I was gonna be able to just watch it and just, get my little feedback here and there. But there's a lot to uncover. There's a lot to uncover. About halfway through this review video, you guys stay tuned for part two. I'm gonna do a part two on this. You guys stay tuned. Let me know what you guys think in the comments thus far, or if you guys watched this interview already, let me know what y'all think. I appreciate y'all for tapping in. Thank you guys so much for those who sent me this video. It's very, very insightful. And I won't continue to watch this video on my own. The next time I do watch it, it'll be with you guys. I want to give you guys my full and authentic reaction. But thus far, this it's amazing. This is super amazing. But I do want to do a part two, so we're gonna break this up into two parts. But appreciate y'all tapping in. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, share this video. Make sure you guys watch the video, make you guys' own critiques and things of that nature. This is my opinion on what's going on, but you guys also have an opinion as well, too. All right. Again, my name is Terrence, the therapist. Y'all take care. Peace.